Hey everybody, this is Sean. Welcome back to my channel. Please help me out by pressing the thumbs up button, subscribing, sharing, commenting. I appreciate the dialogue. I appreciate the kind words. Today's video, we'll be talking about whether it's worth being a police officer in 2025. At the time of filming, we are in September going into October of 2024, and some of you are turning in your applications. You're constantly looking online or you're visiting police departments, and you are pretty much trying to decide whether this is a career that's for you. And I'm here to just give you my perspective of the job. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, I'm located in California, in Southern California. So my understanding of the job does revolve around California. I haven't worked as a law enforcement officer in any of the other states but California, which happens to be one of the most liberal states in the nation. Typically, what you have is when you have liberal policies, you generally have more people committing crime on the street. But that's something that we could talk later on. I'm trying to not involve politics into this, but it's almost impossible to discuss whether or not it's worth to be a police officer in 2025. So we'll do some comparisons. I kind of want to compare the most, I guess, realistic job that's as close to possible to American police work, law enforcement, and that happens to be private security. So maybe I'll compare some numbers. I know where this video is going to go, but I do know that most of the viewers on this channel come from the private security sector, like at least 80%. And I think I have like 11% of the viewers on this channel that come from the law enforcement sector, or they want to get into law enforcement. So let's talk about pay. If pay is something that is important to you, and I'm sure it's important to most of you, a police officer's pay is generally more pay than a private security officer. And if you're asking me how much, it's usually at least 50% more. Sometimes it's 70 to 75% more. And some of you watching this are probably saying, well, Sean, that's not an accurate number because I get the same as police officers. And that might be true. But based on research we've done on this channel, based on a poll that we've done, security officers' pay is not the same as a police officer. In California, especially the Bay Area, you could stand to make close to $200,000. Obviously, you'll need a bachelor's degree to get that pay, or an advanced California post certificate that stands for Peace Officer Standards and Training. That takes, I think, like 12 years if you don't have an associate's degree. If you have a bachelor's degree, I think that you can get your advanced post certificate within, I think it's 6 years, if I'm not mistaken. And usually with these post certificates comes higher pay. Also, with a bachelor's degree comes higher pay. A lot of the police departments, they don't pay you more for having a master's degree, which is kind of messed up. Where I work at, I'm the only person that has a master's degree, and I don't get paid the most. I don't get any financial incentive for having a master's degree. A master's degree just allows me to have off-duty employment, like, for example, like a college. I could be an adjunct professor. At a state university, I can teach some of the, I guess, the lower tier courses. The higher tier courses go to the PhDs. But that's all that it entails. And also, if you're chiming in from another state and you're saying, Sean, you just keep talking about California, keep in mind, I'm in California, and my understanding, my perspective does come from California. But you could basically apply a lot of the logic, a lot of the discussion we have in California to your state, okay? And I would think in just about any states, law enforcement officers generally get paid more than private security. And that doesn't mean like police are higher, they're higher tier on a socioeconomic scale, or a social status than security officers. That's not what this discussion. And those of you who are subscribed to the channel, you guys know that I never put police officers up here and private security down here. So pay, the Bay Area, you're looking at $200,000. However, your house, like if you want to buy a house, it's probably going to cost you at least $1 million. If you're in San Diego County, your pay is probably about $130,000. Starting pay, it'll probably be like 80, 90,000, but once you have like 4 or 5 years, you'll probably be about 120, 130. Again, the house in San Diego costs just like San Francisco. They're close to $1 million. Maybe $800,000 might get you a decent house. If you're in Los Angeles, I think that a house in the middle of Watts, that might even be like $400,000. And your pay for LAPD is, I haven't checked lately, but it's, I don't know, maybe $137,000, somewhere in that boat. When you consider the cost of living, it's not that much. But are there private security positions in San Francisco and Los Angeles that pay you close to $200,000? Are there positions that pay you close to $130,000? Those are very rare, and they're usually reserved for executive protection assignments. And that's it. Or security managers, right? That's another way to move up. So pay is almost always like at least 50% more, sometimes 70% more than private security. What you have to consider is the fringe benefits. So the retirement, right? California has a public employment retirement system, which basically allows a California police officer to retire at the age of 57. Texas, I think it's 55, and I think Arizona, it's also 55. In California, we used to be able to retire at a decent rate at the age of 50. My retirement system is age 50. I'm 40. I'll be 44 come November. So 6 years, I'm eligible to retire. I don't feel like I'm super young, but to a 60-year-old, 70-year-old, I'm just a kid still, right? So the retirement system is a deferred, it's a defined benefit program. And this applies to really any state. Almost every state has a defined benefit program for law enforcement. What that means is that when you reach a certain age, and again, usually it's 55. I think Mississippi is one of the worst retirement systems. I think the retirement age is like 60. But anyhow, when you reach the retirement age, 55, 57, or 60, you get a set pension for life, just like the federal system. Your entire life, you get paid. And also, if you're married, you can set your formula up so that your significant other also gets your retirement. However, you're going to be getting less during your living years. That's an advantage, right? So when you compare Social Security to your basic law enforcement retirement system, there's so much more benefits. With Social Security, I think the retirement age is I think it's 62, right? But it maxes out at like 70 something. I can't remember the exact age, but it's 70 something, and the most that you'll ever get is like $4,000 a month, assuming that you're going to be working until like age 70. And I know that some of you are still working, and you might be older than 70. But I don't want to be in law enforcement until I'm age 70. I don't want to be working private security until I'm age 70. I probably won't be in that great, physical capacity to be protecting a post at age 70. So that's why law enforcement's retirement is so much better. Now, medical retirement. There's some police departments out there that offer medical retirement after you put a certain number of years of service. There's, in my area, not my area, but like 3 hours away from me, there's Fontana Unified School District Police. And after you give 10 years of service, you get lifetime medical. insurance. Right now, medical insurance for PPO, these are your preferred providers. Even an HMO costs about $2,000 a month, and you cannot use, in most cases, your Medicare. So Medicare is basically your medical insurance when you're older in life. That age for that is 65. So I could start pulling medical insurance at age 50 when I retire, or most people watching this, 55, 57. Or you could just wait until you're 65, right? If you're still alive. I'm just saying, guys, you get to go to, like, for me, I get to go to just about any insurance provider I want to, and a significant amount is paid. So where I work at, after 20 years of service, which I have already, my employer pays 50% of my medical insurance up until I'm age 65. Every year past the 20th year, I get additional 5%. So my employer, come February, I'll have 22 years. So 60% of my medical insurance will be paid for life. And a lot of police departments out there have a similar policy in place. So now you're getting an additional benefit of like $2,000, $1,800 a month. Okay? So benefits, more pay, health insurance, and a defined retirement program. Almost all the security companies out there offer a 401k. The 401k is tied to the stock market. You're going to depend on the stock market for your retirement, because I was around during the stock market crash of 2000, the late 2000. So it was like 2009, 2010. I foreclosed from my house. My payment, and again, this is, I man up to my mistakes, and that's buying more than I can afford. My house payment was going to go to like almost $3,000 a month from $2,200 a month. And I know that some of you guys think that's a steal in 2024, 2025, and it is. But you're talking about the late 2000s, where police were not averaging over $100,000 salary a year. So once again, I foreclosed on my house. We lost our house. Again, the stock market crashed. It took a tank around that time. And since I've been alive, I think I've experienced 2 market crashes where I was financially responsible or financially irresponsible. And then I think there was a stock market crash. I'm an 80s kid. I think sometime around like 1980 or something like that, or 80, there was that other crash. But the stock market, it goes up and down. So if you get a retirement from your security employer or your employer, and it's based on 401k, I don't have a lot of confidence in that. Now, what I do like, so when I worked hospital security, we had, I think it's called a 401b program or 403b program, which involves basically like nonprofits, right? With my employer, we had a matching program. So if you contribute X amount, they actually put a percentage towards your retirement, which was pretty neat. And I still have that 403 program somewhere. I forgot what the proper term is, but I dumped it into another account. Oh my goodness, I forgot the name of it. But so that's a disadvantage, right? You're stuck with that, and then you're stuck with Social Security. So yes, when you hit age 62, you can start drawing into Social Security, and then your 401k. But is that going to be enough to live on? And I would argue probably not. Your house absolutely has, if you own a house, it absolutely has to be paid off. Otherwise, you're probably not going to make it. Okay. Now, going back to law enforcement, right? I get 144 hours of vacation a month after putting in 14, 15 years of service. A lot of other law enforcement agencies has that same plan. Like every paycheck, I earn like 6.77 hours of vacation, I earn 3.69 hours of sick time. I mean, I have such time off in the books that I can take a whole year off, like 12 months. And I can actually probably retire for sure a year early, and possibly when I'm done 6 years, probably 2 years early. I can retire. Does your employer where you work at, um, do they give you almost 7 hours of vacation and 3.69 hours of sick time every single pay period? Compensatory time. So what we're able to do is, like, instead of overtime, I'm able to convert my overtime hours into comp time, which basically means I can use that comp time for like a day off or for hours off. So I start in at a low rate of pay. Just to give you guys a number, when you start off as a law enforcement, where I work at, I think we pay like close to $30 an hour, right? We'll say no. Well, we'll say $27 an hour, right? When you retire, you might be making $60 an hour. And then with all that comp time that you saved up in the bank, you get to cash that out towards the end. So you get basically almost a month and a half full of pay. Does your employer offer that? A lot of public agencies offer that. And to be quite honest with you, if my employer wanted to fire me, it would cost them over $100,000 to do that. If they want to fire everybody that I work with, it would cost them probably close to $1 million, and they don't even have $1 million, like extra to fire everybody, or to go to, or just to get rid of everybody, lay everybody off. There's just so much more benefits, I think. Now let's talk about the disadvantages. Okay, so dealing with suspects of crimes, dealing with violent people, guys, that is fun. Like getting into car chases, running after bad guys, like all that excitement. It's fun. I'm not gonna lie, it's fun. It's exciting, even for me. That's been in this for over 2 decades. It's still exciting for me. The disadvantage, what makes it not exciting, is the processes involved. So you catch your bad guy, and then now you get to deal with processing this prisoner, which might involve a medical clearance. So this person might say, "Oh, you know what? I've been coughing up blood," or something like that. Now all of a sudden you are stuck at a hospital, getting a medical clearance done with this individual for anywhere between, it's usually a minimum of an hour and a half, all the way up to like 12 or 14 hours. That's the process, I'm telling you. But where I work at, the hospitals are so incompetent. They lack common sense. They lack urgency. A lot of them I wouldn't even consider professionals, right? So you as a law enforcement officer, you're stuck with this individual just staying there, and then you got to stay awake. Also the jails, right? So if you're a police officer, not the deputy sheriff, you might have to deal with the jail aspect of it. So you have a prisoner, you might not have a city jail, so you might have to book that prisoner into county jail. That's politics in itself. The watch commander for the jail might say, "You know what? I don't want this guy in our jail because he's rowdy, right? He basically assaulted a police officer. And he's combative. I don't want him to. I need you to get him sedated." Like, what? You want me to get him sedated? I mean, you guys have safety cells. You guys have the manpower to watch this individual. So now you want me to go to the hospital and sedate him? Where does this fall under the use of force continuum? But see, you see what I mean is the process is very frustrating. I could deal with like criminal investigations, catching these suspects of crimes, interviewing witnesses. It's totally fun. It's exciting and it keeps me going, but it's the process, right? Also, I think what wears a lot of police officers out is the internal process, right? You might have a commander, a sergeant, a chief, who hasn't worked the streets in a long time, and they're pushing policy into you, or interpreting policy that's more favorable to maybe right? Well, not to the department because that's the policies you want to follow, but that's something that's like maybe offers the least amount of risk possible, right? So I'll give you an example, right? You might have a barricaded suspect and you're like high charger. You want to go in, I don't know, maybe you're on the SWAT team or something like that. You want to go in and take care of business, right? You want to catch this individual, take him safely into custody. But then you might have the administrator on top that might say, you know what, I can't risk the suspect getting hurt because that would be bad press. And I don't want our officers to get hurt as well. This won't look bad on the newspaper or the news, social media. So you know what, go ahead and disengage. And that's what I'm talking about. It's the process gets pretty frustrating. And yes, there's pros and cons to this. There's definitely pros and cons to withdrawing yourself from situations, but it's totally frustrating. Training, right? You're going to get a lot more training as a law enforcement officer than let's say as a security officer in most circumstances. But every class that I have designed, and I think I'm on number 12 already. Every class I designed, I have to go through a lengthy discussion on all of the legal updates. Tennessee versus Garner. Oh, wait a minute. Tennessee versus Garner. Geez, what's the other one? I think it was Mapp versus Ohio. California Penal Code 835A. I think it's like 192. And then like a bunch of the Senate bills, right? You can literally take 4 hours of your class time. So if I'm putting up a shooting class, right, like a red dot transition class for pistol, which I did already, you can spend 4 hours, 2 to 4 hours just discussing the legal updates. And where are we getting the manual skills, the physical skills manipulation portion of it? I mean, you're really not. And every class that I put on, I have to have those discussions. I have to discuss de-escalation. I have to discuss, 835 PC, by the way, is the California Criminal Code that basically describes when a police officer in California can use force. So I got to discuss all that. What this is doing is taking away all of my time from physical skills manipulation, firearms, and is diverting it into something that I already know, that somebody else already knows. So in that week, the red dot transition class, I had to have a lengthy discussion on the legal updates. And then like 2 weeks later, I did a red dot pistol mounted optic level course. I gave the class. And I had to have the same legal discussions, even though I had the same students in the class. So that's another frustrating aspect. In California, they took away a lot of the state money from the tactical classes and they dumped them into the de-escalation classes. Now, you need both. I mean, to be an effective police officer, you need to have those de-escalation abilities. But they took like almost all the funding away from the classes that will allow you to live another day. It will allow you to save people, like the active shooter classes. They took significant actually almost all the funding away from those classes and dumped them into de-escalation. What else? Use of force. Okay, when you use legal use of force, it's justifiable. Like you think it's justifiable, but again, you have a supervisor that reviews it. If you're at LAPD, if this is a critical incident like a shooting, you have a citizen review board over that. You have an administrator shooting panel. I mean, there's so many tiers that will review your shooting, including the district attorney's office, right? Also in California, if the person is not armed, your case automatically goes to the California Attorney General's office. And it's scary. Guys, I don't know if you've been in I don't want to say my situation, but if you've been in a lethal force encounter and had a district attorney investigator read you your Miranda rights, it gets very frightening. I don't say frightening, but it'll kind of get you nervous when they're reading your rights. If you say the wrong thing or if you did the wrong thing, you're going to leave in handcuffs and you're going to spend the rest of your life in prison behind bars. Who knows? Maybe, I don't. Maybe they'll throw you in isolation. Probably not. But you'll go to protective custody. You don't think that the guys, the inmates from general population, try to make their way into protective custody (PC) in order to take your own life, to take your life? I think it happens all the time. Look at Daryl. Is it Daryl Chauvin? Oh my goodness, I forgot his name. So now that, guys, there's a lot of framework, like legal framework, you have to go through when you use force. And there's a lot of report writing, right? I think it's private security. There's probably less depending on where you work at, but being a police officer, there's tons of report writing. And if you have a family, you're going to miss the most critical times of your children's life and the life of your family. Like, you're going to miss birthday parties. You're going to miss Thanksgiving. You're going to miss Christmas. You're going to miss New Year's Eve. I used to spend New Year's Eve with my family single year. I remember the last year I spent New Year's Eve, and this is something that I'll always, like, I'll never forget, and I'll never forgive myself. I worked private security on New Year's Eve. It was like, I think it was 2000, right? Like, I just wanted to work it. I'd rather do that. And then that same year, my grandfather, who he was my lifetime mentor. I confided in him. He was my everything, and he ended up passing away during that year. And I regret every single Christmas I missed, every New Year's Eve I missed for my family, because you can't take those moments back. Being in law enforcement, I remember, like, it was like 7 years straight I worked New Year's Eve and even Christmas. Like, you're gonna miss time. Half of law enforcement ends up getting divorced. I mean, right now, everyone that I work with, almost, I think everybody except like one or two have never been divorced. So that's also a possibility. A lot of guys I work with, they got to deal with child support, child custody issues, and again, you're missing the best times of your life. And then a lot of times you're going to be ordered to work. So if you don't want to work a weekend, hey, okay, you don't want to work? Now I'm going to order you to work. And as a supervisor, law enforcement supervisor, I have to constantly order people on my team to work. It's something uncomfortable. I hate doing it. But if you don't order somebody, or you're not the one being ordered in, the public they're not going to have the protection that they deserve. There's going to be less than minimal manpower. So that's just something else that you have to keep in mind. All right, Russian guys here. Russian wants to know, is that a punishment for officers to ride in patrol car with LGBT flag on it for some events, or they want to do it? I think, like, San Francisco PD, it might be optional. I really don't know. Yeah, Mr. Fusion says there's police departments that pay $13 to $15 an hour. Yep, it's not California, though. He says, since we are here, Sean, could you explain why starting out in a small police department is a bad idea compared to medium, big-size police department? I'm going to have to do another video on that, because we're definitely going to run out of time. Let me screenshot that for you. TV says, even if you made the same hourly pay as a police officer, they would probably still come out ahead because of overtime, and the benefits of going is way better than any security officer. Yep. Matthew says, to me, it is worth it. Somebody has to do it. It's been a dream of mine for very long. I'm currently going through the hiring process here in Oregon. I'm praying to get in. Hopefully you get in. Hopefully you definitely get in. All right, guys. I'm out, and I'm looking forward to your comments. Take care.